So like I said, we are here just to talk about what we're doing in our classrooms, what's working, specifically with classroom management. So, little tips, tricks. I don't know about you, but I kind of believe that if my classroom management goes well and my first 5 minutes go well, then I'm off and rolling and things are pretty good. And that's if the technology is working appropriately and all of that stuff. So I was struggling with taking attendance, per se. So through conversations with other people, with Ellen and Ed, and I ended up coming up with a way where I could both take attendance and welcome Jim, and kind of do entry, exit slips, and kind of get some participation in there for engagement stuff. So what I started doing, for example, is I would post in my classroom, when they come in, to just in the stream of the classroom to basically say, hey, are you here or are you not? And if you're here physically, type here in the box. And if you are not, I will share my screen with you right now to kind of give you an example of it. And if you're at home, type DL for distance learner. And what that did is I'd been trying to take it in the chat on the Google Meet, but that doesn't record. So this will stay students' names, but here I have, all the kids who were there yesterday. And I can go back in and look at, everyone who checked in right at the beginning of class. In doing that, then I'll ask, a question somewhere in the middle of the class with, hey, here's what's working, or something that might be content related, and something at the end. And that's one trick that I've been using to kind of manage my classroom and deal with that, the whole use of technology. If you look at the sheet I shared with you, I'll shoot it right now to Bonnie and to Jim. Just sent it your way. You'll see that, other things could include, rules and routines, any ways people are checking for understanding. And this is just an open forum for us to try to just kind of share what's working. So does anyone have anything they want to throw at us? Wait time is the best. All right, Glenn, what are you doing that's working for you? Unmute, Glenn. Unmute. Glenn, this is being recorded, and you need to unmute.
Thank you. So, no, I'm really, really struggling with, participation in class and getting kids to talk, and I don't think I'm doing a good job kind of teaching to the distance learners. I mean, it's hard for me to kind of have students in front of me, but then be concentrating on this little screen, and right here. I mean, that's my concern, that I'm not allowing for participation from the kids at home. I think much of it is the assignments that I'm giving are not kind of allowing for as much participation in the class. So I think it's two ways I got to look at this: one, the assignment, and two, how to make more connection with those kids at home.
Glenn, I'll completely echo your statements and your feelings. I feel the same way. I did steal a really, really simple trick actually from Keith Orsini in one of our Inc. meetings about how you were asking questions and numbering your questions. Can you explain that to everyone here?
Numbering the questions? What do you mean?
You had kind of said in our last Inc. meeting that you would say, hey, I kind of number my questions and say, hey, all the odd questions I'm going to ask to the kids in the room.
Yeah. One of the strategies that worked for me was I was so used to just looking at the kids that were in front of me. I wasn't really teaching to the kids at home. And so to break that habit, I had really a lot of the talking points for the class. And I literally had my notebook going one by one. This is just for the kids that are here. This one is just for the kids at home. And then after that, it's been, I'll have the kids pick. In my class, it's been clear since day one, there is no expectation of volunteerism. You got to talk. And sometimes I'll have the kids share an answer and I'll say, all right, you pick the next person. Pick someone who hasn't spoken yet. And the kids at home can see obviously everyone on their screen. The kids in here can pick someone. It makes it more fluid because there's nothing worse than that awkward dead time where you're just talking to the camera.
Right. That's, yeah. I feel I'm too quick to move away from that. I mean, I hate the awkward silence, but I think I'm a little too quick to give them an out, and not have them talk on that.
One of the things I've done with that, Glenn, is not only I've taken away, and if any kid wants to challenge me on this with administration, I'm sure they'll say I have to allow this, but I've kind of taken away and said, hey, I'm having a hard time managing a class like this. And then, Ellen's one of my students and she throws a question in the chat and I'm trying to get everything going and out and running and then trying to manage the chats. So I basically said, hey, listen, if you have a question or I'm going to ask a question that I need a response to, or I'm asking for a response to, like Keith, I've said, unmute and let's hear your voice. And once I've been able to kind of get that, and I've literally looked at one of my classes and said, it's 8:30. This class is over at 9:30. I will wait the entire time like this until someone at home speaks up. And someone jumped in at one point, and then it was kind of like they got going a little bit quicker. But I think it's all dependent on the day at points too. So I'm struggling in the same way. Does anyone else have anything else that's working for them in reference to student engagement at home?
One of the things that I tried this past week was posing a question in Google Classroom and actually making it an assignment. So like a little 10-pointer, respond to the prompt. And then the kids can view what others have said and respond to that. And so what I told the kids was, you can reply to the question or you can reply to somebody else. And that's been just one strategy using Classroom, and it's real quick.
All right. Anyone else? Abbott, what's working for you, my man?
Save plans. That's how you unmute before you start speaking. Sorry, had to take a shot. Everything. I feel pretty comfortable right now with everything that's going on. I have my, I think the most difficult thing I'm dealing with is trying to assess kids, especially like in my accounting class where there were a lot of, to really determine where they are, I need to give them tests. And it's difficult to do now because I don't think it's fair to the, 5 or 6 kids in the class that are home full time to give them a test that they can, ace because I'm not there to monitor it. So what I've done is I've tried to now change my assessments more to be in class with questions. So we do a big problem. And then, I know kind of on the same level as numbering the questions, I would look at my roster and I would pick somebody at the top of the roster and ask a question. And that top would be somebody in class. And then the next question would come from the bottom of my roster. And that would be somebody distance learning so that I could remember who I was asking. And if there really is no place to hide that way for the folks that are at home, they either did the work and they understand it, or I'm going to find out that they didn't. So that's kind of how I'm proceeding right now. And it's, it's kind of as an ongoing, I'm not sure where to go from now in terms of assessments other than to give them more project-based stuff.
Is anyone using any sort of Pear Deck for student questioning and anything like that? Part of this too is not just share what's working for us and see how we can necessarily support each other without just throwing up like, here's the newest technology thing. Because let's be honest, I don't know about you, I'm pretty good with the technology, but I'm trying to figure out what I know and how I can apply that more before I try to pick up something new. Like, Jim, to your point, some of the formative stuff, that new assessment program is supposed to be pretty cool. I've heard really positive things about it, but I'm not even in a spot where I'm ready to even try to process what that is based on all the other stuff that we're all juggling, right? But is anyone using anything else that they're kind of scratching the surface with that I can help you with, or I can, bring back to Ed and say, this is something that people like Pear Deck in reference to the questioning and engagement from people who are using like Ellen, I know you're using it a bunch. If you could speak a little to the in presentation questioning part where it's like live polling and kids can shoot back and forth. If there's something technology wise we can support you with, I'll get it to you.
So one of the things that I have discovered with Pear Deck is that I don't know necessarily who has and has not responded. And I know that if I have 25 kids in the class, I may only get 17 or 19 or 20 responses because 5 people sitting at home with their cameras facing the ceiling have either walked away, gone back to bed, playing Xbox, whatever the case may be. That's the one challenge I've had with Pear Deck, is that I am not hitting every single student. The majority of my kids will respond to the questions, and then I like to throw like a random in there to kind of help me get to know them a little bit better. So if we're talking about like this past week, I covered like infomercial versus documercial advertising. And so I'm like, what's an infomercial product you've bought or your parents have bought, you had in your house? Just like a fun question like that to throw in to kind of get them a little bit more open in sharing, but not necessarily related to specifics about content learning standards.
I almost feel like there's such a weird expectation for kids in reference to how they're expected to engage at home. And I don't know if they, number one, know how, and number two, if they're willing. And I do think some of it's human nature. Most of the time when I'm in a 3-hour, online training, there's a good hour of that where I'm doing some significant multitasking myself. So like, I'm having a hard time keeping kids engaged but accountable in that way. So I'm with you there, Ellen. Is there anything else that people are struggling with that you can kind of say, hey, I'm not real sure how this is going for me, and does anyone have any ideas? I know having Bonnie and Ben in with us and Kevin, who have a different kind of role in the building, to see how the technology is impacting you guys, and how that might be really cool to hear from in reference to like how me looking at it in a different way. What up, Frank?
Bonnie, anything you want to start with? No, we're finding the students much more engaged this year and much more able to problem solve and multitask and balance what hybrid learning looks like. I will say we certainly haven't captured what social emotional learning looks like. We gave out a survey to all students a few weeks ago, and students have come back with like a Likert scale between 0 and 10. And on average, students are just calling this year about a 5 or a 6. I don't know what each of you staff members feels like this year is from 0 to 10. But even talking to my wife this morning, she said, oh, you should have an easy day today. There's no students in the building. And, I know I'm somewhat more removed from the class day to day than most people, but almost every day is a little bit odd with not seeing students face to face, and trying to troubleshoot and manage and help them has been much more difficult. Those students have certainly got more on board with reaching out for assistance more so now than in the spring. But to going back to that, I need to wrap my head around, how do I talk to teachers about the information that students are giving us about what they need assistance with? So teachers, would it be helpful to have that data I spoke about in a survey? Would you like to know a little bit about what the students are saying about this school year? And if so, what's a good, efficient method to get it out?
Ben, I personally would love to see it. I will tell you, and this is something I've struggled with going back to last spring. I'm done reading emails. I'm reading the ones I asked. I'm trying to go through, right, and prioritize which ones are important, which ones
That's why we love you, Jim. Just come out with it.
Amen. Like, it just is what it is to a
Make
point.
sure you read the SWIA ones.
Glenn, you're about to get muted. The issue for me is you guys work in such a great way and in a talk-based way. So even if you were to take, hey, a 5-minute screencastify, like, that's how I work best, though, right? Like, if you were to say, hey, we gave this survey just like you did, and here's some of the stuff that went into it, And I know you probably don't use Screencastify a bunch. I can help you like do that.
Okay.
Even if it's like the presentation with your voice over it, or the counselors talking about it, going, here's what we're seeing. I do appreciate that perspective. And I really appreciate the fact that you guys are like my next line of support when I'm trying to target a kid that's falling behind.
Well, let me do two quick things, Jim. First off, I'm going to see, maybe not for today's faculty meeting, but let me get a nutshell capture of that. The average South Windsor High School student is measuring this year between 0 to 10 at a 5.2. Some things like that, but also leaving it open-ended. Hey, teachers, if you want any but information on a student, let's take a look at this 12-question survey and see what they said. To put Frank Leone on the spot, I just sent him a result this morning. Frank, I don't know if you were able to take a look at that, but we have a new student transitioning from far out deep in this country who came into South Windsor High, didn't know South Windsor, certainly probably only knew Connecticut on a map, and all of a sudden, we have these supports around the student, and Frank has worked very closely with this student. But Frank, how did you, interpret his survey if you were able to take a look at it this morning?
Got on mute, Frank.
You're not on mute, but you're also not coming through. Do you know American Sign Language? No. Okay. Not coming through for Frank. We'll figure that out. I think this is something going on. Anyways, yeah, we'll do our best to get a capture of that survey. It's going to be helpful for school counselors on our T-Val goals. And I know T-Val is at the top of everybody's mind this morning. So we could also get those numbers out so you can incorporate those in any goals that you have to write regarding social emotional learning.
I think that, for us personally in my department, we use some of our CFA stuff as a T-Val, and the state, we don't even know if the state's going to be able to run that. With that being said, it is 7:35 and I can't hold you up as we're the first meeting. But I value the community. I value the discussion and saying, hey, what are you doing? How's this working for you? And us stealing from each other. As a coach, 90% of coaching is thievery, right? Like just taking what other people do and making it yours. So if there's anything else that just pops into your head, I will go back. I shared a document with a bunch of you. For those of you who showed up kind of into it, that didn't get it, I'll do that right now. And if there's stuff you want to add to that, throw in there, ask questions, and it can kind of hopefully be a running doc. And if we need to come back together, I would love to, just to talk more about what's working and how we can continue to support each other, and not just our students, but our own social emotional state. But other than that, please have a great day and find your way into the next happy hour offering.
Appreciate you, Jim. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.